Look, before we get into the arterial spray and the inevitable why is she still living in a house with windows of it all, let's talk about the culinary disaster that is the production history of Scream 7. If you kept up with the trades, the movie came off less like a smooth shoot and more like a fast car chase where the driver and navigator both jumped out at 60 miles an hour, leaving Neve Campbell to awkwardly move from the trunk into the driver's seat. To make this dish, mix 2 cups of real 1996 nostalgia, a big scoop of We Accidentally Lost Our Lead, the new one started filming on Wednesday, a gallon of Kevin Williamson's special spice, and a shiny topping like something from a Share World Tour. Shake it all up in a small Indiana town that has clearly never heard of a Ring doorbell, and you've got Scream 7. It's a legacy sequel that's trying to reset everything by going back to basics, almost like it forgot the year is 2026. But honestly, sometimes you just want that classic masked slasher vibe, assuming your doctor's a nihilist who's into landlines. The first 10 minutes of this thing are, frankly, a masterclass in phone away commitment. It's a standalone opening sequence that is both a love letter to the fans and a middle finger to the concept of sensible real estate investments. They're offering the Maca experience, which is basically a true crime Airbnb inside the original house from the first movie. It's filled with animatronic ghost faces and enough stab movie memorabilia to make a sane person run for the hills. It's tense, it's playful, and it sets a high bar that the rest of the movie spends its runtime trying to leap over. If you're not totally into it by the time blood hits the floor in that house, you might be a ghost yourself. Let's get into the atmosphere, cause I gotta talk about what's really going on. That crazy, glittery psycho. I have become absolutely pathologically obsessed with Ghostface's new sparkly cloak. In one scene, the killer is stalking someone through a theater, and the way the light hits the fabric makes Ghostface look like he's about to drop the hottest disco album of the year. I spent a good 5 minutes wondering about the logistics. Did the killer go to a Joanne Fabrics? Is it moisture wicking? Seriously, running around Indiana in a thick polyester blend outfit would totally make you overheat. The lighting, however, is a different story. It's dark, not moody noir dark, but I think I accidentally sat on my TV remote and lowered the brightness to 0 dark. There were moments where I felt like I was staring into a black hole, hoping for a glimpse of a kitchen knife. But when you can see the fashion is pure Midwestern, I'm a mom, but I could still outrun a maniac, and the sound design is crisp. That specific sound of the blade is as reassuring as a warm hug at this point. Diving into the meat of it, the movie exists primarily because the studio realized that without Sidney Prescott, they were just making a generic slasher with a recognizable mask. Neve Campbell is back as Sidney, now a mom living in Pine Grove, Indiana, and married to Joel McHale's Mark Evans. He is playing the police chief husband with such earnestness I half expected him to break into a community monologue. Sidney's daughter Tatum, played by Isabel May, is the same age Sidney was when this all started. It's a classic sins of the mother setup, but it feels like a passion project for Kevin Williamson, who returns to the director's chair for the first time since the late 90s. You can feel his hand on the wheel. He's not as visually aggressive as Wes Craven was, and he lacks the hyper-modern look at how clever we are energy of the last 2 films, but he knows how to build a kill. There is an outrageous murder involving a beer tap that I will think about every time I go to a pub for the next decade. It's silly, it's gnarly, and it's the exact why not filmmaking that the franchise needed to survive its behind the scenes meltdown. The acting is a bit of a mixed bag. Neve Campbell could play Sidney in her sleep, but here she's playing her with a weary, tactical precision that is genuinely interesting. She's like a retired general who just heard a bugle call and is looking for her boots. Courtney Cox returns as Gale Weathers, and while I'm wondering if Gale is actually immortal, her chemistry with Sidney remains the emotional spine. The new crop of teens, however, are about as memorable as a terms and conditions agreement. They're alright, they scream good and they look good in a dark hall, but I know nothing about their personalities besides potential victim or weird kid. Even Matthew Lillard's return, if you can call it that, feels like the movie is desperately trying to give the fans a hit of the good stuff without quite knowing how to integrate it into a modern plot. Unlike other movies, Scream 7 thankfully avoids having a message. After the political firestorm that preceded the film's production, you might expect it to lean into some heavy-handed social commentary, but it stays firmly in the lane of mothers protecting their kids. It's a straightforward legacy sequel that values character beats and scares over preaching to the audience. It's not trying to solve the world's problems, it just wants to show you a really creative way to die in a coffee shop. So, is it worthy? Let's call it worthy-ish. It's like finding a $20 bill in the pocket of a coat you haven't worn in 3 years. This movie is kind of a middle-of-the-road survival flick that just repeats the same old stuff instead of trying anything new. It will not dethrone the original, and it lacks the big city adrenaline of the 6th, but as a comfort food slasher, it's like a slightly overcooked frozen pizza. You don't need a super creative script to know Sidney Prescott is legendary. She just needs a kitchen knife and a reason to use it. If you want to make a night of it, pair this with Wes Craven's New Nightmare. It's the spiritual equivalent of Scream 7, if you will. Here's yet another 7th movie situation where the original actress returns to protect her child from a meta-fictional evil that refused to stay in the past. Honestly, it's a really introspective double feature about being a horror icon. And the lighting in New Nightmare is so much better, so please give your eyes a rest from the squinting in Pine Grove. We hope you enjoyed this review. Smash that like button and subscribe to CINERS TV.